Okay, so good evening once again, and welcome to our Wednesday Creative Living series. It's always a blessing, and I mean it, to gather in this space. We're grateful for this opportunity. We are just coming out of the sweetness of Thanksgiving, and even though the holiday it's over for Thanksgiving, we want to weave the spirit of gratitude into our daily lives. We want to be conscious and express gratitude, not just because it feels good, but because gratitude is causative. It sets things in motion. So if you want to move things, be grateful. Gratitude is divine. It activates more of what we appreciate. And again, it's magnetic. It opens the flow for more good to find us. And so, as we step into tonight's lesson, we carry that Thanksgiving consciousness with us, allowing gratefulness to awaken us to what is already working in our lives. Every time we come together, what we're simply doing is that we're calming the noise around us so we can feel who we are inside: the complete, the whole, the abundant, the peaceful, the whole, the healed. Tonight's lesson invites us into a fresh way of looking at something simple, ordinary, and maybe even a little unpleasant. But as always, Spirit has a way of using the ordinary to open the extraordinary. Little wonder it says in the scriptures, do not despise your days of small or humble beginnings. I want to share something that came directly from our circle again. During our Thanksgiving sharing time last week, one of us said something. Rhonda mentioned that she had just moved into a new apartment that she truly loves. But as she settled in, she discovered mold growing in the corner of the house. But instead of simply complaining or feeling discouraged, she said something powerful. She said that what came out of seeing that mold was a realization that this was a reminder for her to take care of her body, to treat herself well, so that mold cannot grow inside her or in her life. She decided she would do everything she could to remove the physical mold from her apartment, from the new apartment. And at the same time, she recognized the deeper lesson. There are places within her, too, that needed attention, needed care, cleansing, and love. Her sharing planted a seed that blossomed into tonight's message. Her experience reminded us that sometimes Spirit speaks through everyday moments, the simple things that we despise, through the corner of a room, through something unexpected, through something we wish we didn't see, through your pet at home, through anything. But we only recognize it when we are sensitive. And with that, our lesson tonight is titled, Don't Feed the Mold. As we walk through this together, you will see how life uses small things to get our attention, the insignificant things. We've all encountered mold at some point in life. Maybe it was under a sink, or hiding in a forgotten corner of your shower, or growing quietly behind a piece of furniture. Mold doesn't start big or obvious. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. It grows in silence, in places we are not looking at, the quiet places, in places we haven't aired out. Mold thrives in darkness, moisture, and neglect. But the real lesson isn't about the mold we see in our homes. It's about the unexamined thoughts and forgotten emotions that Spirit is inviting us to bring into light. Those unexamined thoughts. But here's what Spirit surprises us. Sometimes what we call mold is the very thing Spirit uses to whisper, look here. Come on, look here. Pay attention here. This is where I need your awareness. Sometimes the places in our life that feel inconvenient, uncomfortable, they are invitations, not punishments, not problems, but invitations into a deeper tending of the soul. The lesson is about the mold that can quietly grow inside of us. They are unseen, unattended, and unexamined. That's the mold this message is about. It's interesting how mold behaves. It doesn't need much, just a little dampness, a little warmth, and no fresh air. That's all it takes. Those moist areas. And personal mold grows the same way. In the places we avoid looking at, in the emotions we say we'll deal with later. Oh, about that, oh, forget it, I'll get to it later. In the moments where we feel hot, but stay silent, we don't know how to address it. We just leave it there. It starts small, but if we don't bring it to light, it quietly expands. And the truth is, this is exactly how old beliefs, old hearts, old fears, and old patterns operate. Not because we are broken or because something is wrong with us, but because our mind, just like a room, reacts to whatever we allow inside it. If the conditions we keep are heavy, dark, or cluttered, our world will reflect that. Again, if the conditions we keep, we allow, if they are dark, if they are heavy, if they are moist, if they are leadened, cluttered, our inner world will reflect that. And if the conditions are light, open, and healthy, our inner world will reflect that too. So mold is not personal. It doesn't grow because the house is unworthy. No, not because the vessel is unworthy. It grows because the environment made space for it. Just like clutter, the boxes we don't open, the corners we avoid, the things we let pile up, they create that kind of stillness where mold can quietly begin. It's just a conducive environment for it. The same is true within us. When our thoughts or emotions stay cluttered and unmoving, they create room for what we don't want to take shape. And life works the same way. The things that grow in us, whether good or bad, grow according to the inner environment we maintain. So when things come at you, that's why we're practitioners. We don't let it settle, especially when it's negative. We address the thought immediately. This is not who I am. I am blessed. I am abundant. All things are working out for me. We reject it. This is where the spiritual metaphor begins to deepen. Just as mold grows in darkness, so do certain thoughts. Have you ever wondered sometimes when you get into those low moments, before you know it, it's like a ripple effect. It leads to another one. It connects to another one. And if you're not careful, there's a chain of negativity going on. It just flows like ripple effects. Thoughts we don't question, stories we keep repeating, memories we haven't healed, self-criticism we've carried for years, beliefs we inherited without examination. So we want to examine every thought, bring it to light, dissect it. That's why we're students of this teaching. How does this work? Put whatever thoughts are vis-a-vis the light, the truth that you know. These are not the signs that something is wrong with our spirit. They are simply the parts of us that haven't seen the light. Mold never grows in sunlight, and nothing untrue can survive the light of your awareness. Think about it. Nothing untrue, nothing unworthy can survive in the light of your awareness. When you bring everything to light, okay, this thought, where did you come from? How is this thought working out for me? How does this thought align with good and greater good, with exceedingly abundantly and above, with wholeness? There is a river in northern India known for one rare event. One year after a long season of drought, a wide stretch of the river simply stopped moving. Not dry, just still, perfectly still. The water was there, but the flow was gone. Villagers said it looked like a mirror. You could see your face clearly in it. But beneath the quiet surface, the river was slowly dying. Fish began to float upward. Plants began to rot. A heavy odor rose that no one could ignore. And a scientist who came to investigate made a striking statement. Water is not meant to be still. When it stops moving, it forgets what it is. So they dug small channels to allow fresh water to enter and opened pathways to reconnect the river with its natural course. At the moment, the water began to move even slightly. At the moment, the water began to move even slightly. The river remembered itself. The smell faded. Life returned. Everything came back into alignment with what the river already knew how to be. Sometimes the mold we discover inside us is simply a sign that something in us has stopped moving, stopped breathing, and stopped flowing. Not because we are broken, but because a part of us has forgotten its natural rhythm. We are meant to keep growing in how we think, to become more aware, and to stay open to spirit. We are meant to keep growing. That is Spirit's desire for you. Little wonder sometimes when people are admitted in the hospital, they want them to move their limbs. Because once you stop, everything stops. It becomes difficult to move. When we stop learning, when we stop stretching, or stay in the same emotional space for too long, things inside us start to feel blocked or heavy. It's not because we are unworthy. It's simply because we were created to move. You are created to move, not to be stagnant. We are created to change, to breathe, and to keep flowing forward. This is why the spiritual journey is not about fighting what we don't like within ourselves. It's about illuminating it with truth. So when a room is dark or damp or mold grows, when our mind is filled with fear, doubt, unworthiness, certain patterns grow. The moment we bring light, spiritual understanding, new thoughts, and a willingness to see differently, things begin to shift. And you have the power to do this. When we start to shine light on old beliefs, it's always been this. I was taught to do it this way. But that's why, again, we are students of this teaching. We want to change any belief that's not working for our good. When we start to shine the light on old beliefs, we said, everything changes. Again, surface cleaning doesn't fix mold. You can wipe the wall today and it looks very fine, but if the moisture underneath hasn't been addressed, it will return. Definitely. Many people live life trying to wipe the surface of their experience without changing the atmosphere of their consciousness. They say the right words but still hold to the old stories. They attend spiritual classes but still cling to the old narrative. They pray, they treat, but continue expecting the worst. They affirm abundance while secretly believing they will always struggle. And sometimes, without even knowing it, we hold on to certain issues because they bring us a kind of familiar attention, the sympathy, the validation, the "are you okay" moments, your attention. We don't mean to, but the old issue becomes comfortable. It's just so comfortable with status quo. It gives you attention. We like the fairness thing. Almost like a badge we know how to wear. But surface attention cannot heal what only inner truth can reach. That's surface cleaning. Spiritual transformation requires us to change the environment, not just the surface. You know, sometimes there's some things that happen in the home. You just need to open the window. And when we open it on the east side, we go to the west side and open it because we want it to flow. We want things to flow. Spiritual, again, transformation requires us to change the environment. There was a moment when we discovered mold under a bathroom sink in the basement here. A place rarely opened. It wasn't dramatic, it was just there, silent, patient, expanding. And you know what? That's how old beliefs grow. Not in places you watch, but in the corners you forget to open. It hit me how many corners of our inner life go unexamined. There are those things that we don't like discussing. We don't like bringing it up. Some of those thoughts or those feelings that make you feel small. You don't like talking about it. Once they bring it up, you just shrink because it makes you uncomfortable. The beliefs we never updated, the hurts we never healed, the memories we keep avoiding. the emotions we never processed, the assumptions we absorbed and never revisited. Those hurts, I don't want to talk about it. Sometimes airing our emotions or thoughts is almost like when things happen, you cry and just let it out. Don't hold it within. These corners become the breeding grounds of inner mold. Not because we are flawed, but because we simply haven't looked there in a long time. Those environments are very conducive for molds to grow. It's like you planted a seed and you added fertilizer to it. Those old stories. Awareness is light, and light transforms. Like I said earlier, that we don't fight over things. We just bring light to the situation. We bring awareness to it. You find out how everything will fizzle out, will solve itself. When we become aware, the mold begins to lose its power. It begins to fall apart. It can't survive where truth is shining. And yet, awareness is only one part of transformation. Mold needs moisture to grow. And emotional moisture is that those places inside us where old feelings are still sitting, unresolved, unexpressed, unprocessed. The tears we didn't cry, the conversations we avoided, the disappointments we never fully acknowledged, been carried it out. I did this exam, I failed. And anytime you want to try it, you're overwhelmed with the past. And it's still there. And you've not assured yourself that all is well, that you are unfolding perfectly, that you are moving, that failure has prepared you for the tomorrow that you are becoming. The grief we brushed aside. Moisture isn't bad. It just means something hasn't dried. And drying here means forgiving, releasing, letting go, and allowing truth to breathe through us, through you. When we allow spirit to dry emotional moisture, we are not denying our feelings. We are simply choosing to let truth evaporate what no longer serves us. It's gentle because spirit never shames us for having emotional moisture. Spirit simply invites us to open the window, to breathe, to bring fresh air into the places we have been holding stale air. And that's why we often talk about pause, the pause that refreshes. Breathe. Sometimes when you're overwhelmed, before you say that thing, just take a fresh breath. Illuminate their thoughts, the inside, and be amazed the wonderful things that would come out. Fresh air is a shift in consciousness, a breath of new thoughts, a decision to see differently, a willingness to release old conclusion and make room for a new thought to flow. As the environment within us shifts, the old mode cannot survive. The environment simply no longer supports it. It chokes it. The truth will choke the mold. This is the heart of new thought. Change your thinking and you change your life. Change the mental environment and the old patterns dissolve. It's just simple. They lose their power because the environment that kept them alive is no longer there. Transformation begins inside, and everything on the outside eventually follows. Again, the mold doesn't argue. It doesn't fight. It simply lives when the atmosphere no longer supports it. It cannot thrive. The light, the change in consciousness, awareness just chokes oxygen off it. And this is the same with the old beliefs we carry. Once the inner air begins to freshen, old stories can't grow. Once we constantly tune in and listen to this truth, there's some things that can't stay within. Because you know that that's not who you are. Once truth enters, false ideas cannot survive. Everything false, everything negative, down, can't thrive. Once love expands, fear begins to evaporate. Once awareness rises, unconscious patterns, negative patterns, they fade. They do not have a choice. The mold dissolves because the environment has changed. And we all have the power to change that environment. And we want to use that power that we are one with. In that power, we live, we move, and would have our being. Life has a gentle way of timing things perfectly. We only notice the mold when we are ready to clean the corner. We feel discomfort only when our soul is ready for movement. Spirit reveals what needs tending at the exact moment we are strong enough to tend to it. Nothing shows up too soon. Nothing comes too late. Everything is in divine order. And it's just like the old saying, the teacher shows up when the student is ready. When our awareness reaches a certain point, life brings us the exact lesson, person, or moment we need to grow. Life's timing is always speaking to us, even in small, quiet corners. What's powerful is that the mold was never the problem. It's not about the mold. The environment is the cluttered place. And here is the paradox. Sometimes the very thing we want to get rid of is the thing showing us exactly what needs healing. So sometimes we want to appreciate it when we see the mold, because it's just a pointer that we need awareness in this direction. The mold is not an enemy, it's a map. It shows us where the air has stopped moving. It shows us where our thinking has become too tight. It shows us where we have been living on old breath. Mold is just a symptom of stagnant situations, of conditions. So when we identify a mold, we want to be grateful, because that means an aspect of us needs airing, needs light. Likewise, the patterns we dislike in our lives are symptoms of old thinking, fear, old conclusions, old habits of perception. So many people fight symptoms without changing causes. Life is an ever-moving flow of energy, but sometimes within us, certain ideas become stagnant, and stagnation always invites the mold. We want to fight the root cause, not just what shows up on the outside. Things like maybe someone told you when you were young that you weren't good enough. And you still allow that linger. And it affects you now because of what someone said a little while ago. We want to sit down with those thoughts and change it and reframe it and affirm who we are in this moment, complete, whole. Maybe someone told you life is always hard, and that belief has lived like moisture in your subconscious. Some people, they've been told they have a near success syndrome, and without seeing it, whenever they go into a situation, they have that field. The same thing will play out again. Maybe again an old heartbreak left emotional residue that never got the chance to dry. Maybe a memory kept replaying, creating a pocket of inner humidity. And what does it? Will attract more of same. None of these things means you are broken. It simply means there is a corner inside you ready for light, ready for fresh air. As we reflect, we realize that mold shows up not to shame us, but to teach us. So mold is a messenger. It tells us something here needs fresh air. So when that shows up, it just gives us indication of where attention is required. Again, this also means that mold cannot grow in places of movement. So we want to keep moving, changing our thoughts, new thoughts every day. It's new every morning. Remember, you can change your mind now. You have the power to do that. Everything is possible in this present moment. We want to always allow spirit to ventilate our thinking. We want to let the truth circulate. And when we do this, the atmosphere will shift. Things become lighter. Thoughts feel clearer. The noise of old stories becomes softer. And we realize we are not fighting mold, we are transforming the environment. Everything we said, you have the power to do it. We cannot feed the mold. We feed mold when we feed old stories. And how do we feed old stories? When we just dwell in it. You know, sometimes we meditate on the old stories. You just dwell in there. Sometimes we've taken it as a protection. We feel safe. Or when we affirm that we are weak, we won't be troubled, they will let us be. And we feel comfortable. And we're adding layers and layers and layers of that. We feed mold when we rehearse the same fear. When you've tried something, it didn't work out, and you decided not to try again because you believed that failure, you believed that situation. And the mold becomes thicker. And the next time you want to try, it becomes more difficult because the mold is taking a larger chunk of space. We feed mold when we say, this is just how I am. But how can it be who you are, how you are, when it's not in line with what Spirit says that you are? Whole, complete, abundant. This is just how I am. We feed mold when we hold on to resentment. We feed mold when we refuse to look at the places that scare us. Oh, I don't want to talk about that. You just turn your back and move the other direction. We feed mold when we stay in emotional darkness. But the moment we lean toward truth, we stop feeding the mold. The moment we breathe spiritual air. The moment you decide, well, let me just put my plug in and listen to something positive, you find that every part of you begins to move. Everything is activated because the truth is power, it's energy, it's moving. The moment we breathe in fresh air, we stop feeding the mold. The moment we shine even the smallest light, the mold begins to go. The smallest light. Well, I don't want to think about this thought again. I'm getting up to take my shower. The mold begins to move. There's something incredibly freeing about realizing that you are not asked to fight the mold inside. You are simply asked to bring awareness to it. Fighting mold doesn't work in the physical world or the spiritual either. Fighting keeps you in the same atmosphere, but awareness changes the air. Awareness brings in the breeze of spirit. Awareness is like opening the window, inviting the light to shine, and that will make the environment to shift. And again, the mold does not have any choice than to move. Again, you are not the mold. You are not the old belief. You are not the old story. You are not the old wounds. You are the light that dissolves them. And that's why we often say, I am light. You are light. And the light is not put under the bushel, it's put on top to shine. You are the awareness that transforms them. You are the fresh air that clears them. You are the truth that purifies them. Every time you choose a loving thought over a fearful one, it's like you are opening the window. Every time you choose to forgive, you are opening the window. You're opening another window. We know forgiveness is not easy, but anytime you choose to do that, you've opened another window. Every time you choose hope over doubt, yet another window is opened. And before you know it, every room in your consciousness becomes filled with light and air. Spirit is always calling us into freshness. We say it's new every morning. It's new every time. Into renewal, into clarity, into newness of thought. Again, anytime nothing new is happening, that's a conducive environment for molds to thrive. Freshness, newness is your nature. New ideas is your nature. You know, if we positively expect new ideas, you would have them. So freshness, newness is your nature. Wholeness is your atmosphere. Light is your identity. And truth is your environment. So as we close this lesson, let this thought settle deeply. Mold is not your enemy. It's an indicator. It shows you where you are ready to glow. It shows you where to point a light. It shows you where spirit wants to bring light. It shows you where new thought is ready to bloom. Your life doesn't change because you scrub the surface. Your life changes because you transform the environment. And as the inner environment shifts, everything in life begins to reflect that new atmosphere. So this week, we want to walk aware of our thinking. We want to open the inner windows that once felt closed. We want to welcome light into every corner of our mind, our consciousness. We want to breathe consciously. Again, when we are breathing, we are breathe and name what you want the fresh breath to do in you. Remember, your words are powerful and you can send them on errand. We do not want to feed the mold. We want to feed the truth. And all is well. And so it is.